I ngā maunga whakahi o te motu tū tonu mai, e aku whakateitei tahuti mai, nau mai rā. Welcome to Mata with me, Mihingarangi Forbes, brought to you by te Māngai Pāho and the Public Interest Journalism Fund. And this is a very special episode of Mata today because after many requests to his office, we are joined in studio by a very special guest, he kōtuku rerenga tahi, ara ko te meneta whakawhanaketanga Māori, the Minister for Māori Development, Willie Jackson. Tēnā koe I te meneta.
Kia ora mihi, rawe ki te haramai ko nei, ki te tautoko tō wāhanga. Mihi nui kia koe, I hear you're going great guns.
Willie's also the Minister for Broadcasting as well as the Associate Minister for ACC, Housing and Social Development, and we're going to touch on many of those portfolios over the next half an hour in the special extended interview. E te tumu herenga waka, tēnā koe, thank you for coming in. Let's start with, it's been a rocky month for you guys. How are you coping after the resignation of your tuahine?
I'm going to see her tomorrow. I'm going to spend the day with her. I said we're going to have some lunch and have we're talking about kiritapu obviously. And I just want to have we talk every couple of days, but heartbreaking stuff, you know, me. It was, you know, we love it. We love kiritapu. I know I do and my family does. She's a bit of a hero for my daughter and for a lot of young women, you know. And so, it's just, I've never seen anything quite like it. I don't think we've ever seen a Justice Minister get into this sort of trouble. But it doesn't take away the fact that she's got huge talent. She's passionate, she's a wonderful young woman. And as I keep saying to her, you know, you're only 39. You know, I've lived my life around people who've come back in terms of redemption. And, you know, kiritapu can do anything. She's a great entertainer, you know, a lot of fun. She can... she's a strong advocate, she's she's actually brilliant in that legal area. I've loved working with her in Parliament because she can break down all the intricacies, you know, so well. Some of us do the fronting and all that, but man can kiritapu break stuff down. So I have to say in terms of my political life, it's maybe the saddest thing I've ever seen in terms of what's happened to her. But you know, that doesn't take away our friendship and my commitment to her, so I'm going to enjoy some time with her tomorrow.
Kare kore e ara mai anō e kiritapu. You've lost, so we've lost kiritapu, you've lost Mika, and when I look at the list that's just come out, I can see just one wahine Māori in your top 20, that's Willow Jean Prime. What message are you sending to voters?
Two. Jo Luxon's the other one. She came in at 19, so...
Kare au I te whakapapa a tētehi atu.
No tainui tērā wahine.
And I'm not challenging people's whakapapa because he Māori te Māori. But when you consider the taumahatanga that is on wahine Māori who are advocating and agitating for kaupapa Māori, do you think it's safe to be putting her in, you know, to calling her a wahine Māori when she herself says, you know, she feels like a fraud in the Māori caucus, and she's not even on the Māori list yet. You know, just the partai, just a question.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. She's beautiful, Jo. She's found her taha Māori side when she's been with us. So there's 5-6 Māori in the top 20, I think it is. Jo and Willow Jean are our two wahine Māori, and then myself, Penny, Calvin and Adrian are the 4 Māori men, so that's fair for you to point that out. Nanaia Mahuta would have
been... Nanaia?
Nanaia would have been in, Nanaia would have been in the top 10, so you would have had 4, you know, you would have had 3 Māori women. So, you know, we've got the Māori woman representation is strong. Soraya made a decision not to come on the list. Kushla Tangaire made a decision not to come on the list, and Kushla would have been right up there too. So she just wants to take Mecca straight on. She just wants a straight scrap with Mecca. I think it's going to be really good to watch how that goes, particularly with Mecca being on the list. I think she's going to be high on the Māori list, party list from what I've seen. In terms of, is it safe for wahine Māori? You know, the Parliament is a confrontation place. I don't know if it's safe for anyone to tell you the truth, but if you're asking me, do Māori women cop it probably worse than anyone? I would agree with that. I watched the treatment of my tuahine Nanaia Mahuta, and I think she went through things that were unforgivable. I don't know, and that's not so much from people in there. People in there were generally quite good to her, but you know, some of the rubbish she got from the outside was terrible, and the analogies made with It's just shocking what Nanaia,
Era.
Davidson's the same thing. You know, if you want to go through
Me
Tūrei, you can go back to Sandra Lee, you can go back, you know, all the way through Tariana, and then even our latest one with Tupper. I mean, fancy having a debate after what she had been through, and we had David Seymour put up that kaupapa, all of a sudden do a big mihi to Tupper, and then we have to discuss, you know, that. And I was shocked. We were angry actually at David Seymour, but he doesn't care. It's about winning votes for him. So I would agree with you that Māori women probably get it worse than anyone, but I think women in general do, and it's not exactly the most comfortable place for everyone. But I mean, I knew that when I first went in there, but I do have a lot of aroha for different people who find it very very difficult.
Just swinging back to Kusha Te Ngaire Emmanuel, do you have hope there? What do you think?
I think she'll win the seat. I think she'll win the seat because she's a real tūturu Ngāti Pro woman, a real strong advocate, Kush. And also, I think there's a lot of question marks on Meka. I think that's the reality. I know the Maori Party hate me talking about it, but they were so opportunistic with the way they embraced Meka. And I think our people, and it's up to Kusha how she runs the campaign, but the questions have got to be asked why she left. Yeah. You know, and to make any analogy with Tariana Tūria, for instance, that's not right in terms of Tariana Tūria. It's
certainly a seat that's going to be one for watching on election night.
I think so, and I think that she'll win the Ngāti Pro vote, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I think the seat might be one in some of those more the city, you know, Lower Hutt, Wainui.
Yeah, that's right, and there's a strong vote down there. But I don't underrate Meka. Obviously, she's got a history there, but we've got a bit of a strategy for Ngāti Kohangarei, and so I'm looking forward to rolling that out.
We'll be watching.
It's the seat to watch. I think it's 50-50.
Let's talk about housing. You're Associate Housing Minister, but you're also Māori Development, so it's right in your purview. Kāinga Kore is the Waitangi Tribunal report in response to Māori homelessness. Found in 2018, Māori were 4 times more likely to be homeless than any other. Māori housing advocates say that figure's much more. Te Puia Marae Chief Executive Hurimoana Dennis says it's 60%, so that's 60,000 homeless Māori. What do you know about them?
Oh, I know that a lot of them come around our marae too, at Ngā Whare Wātea. A lot of them are struggling. And it's, you know, this Māori homelessness is something that, you know, I know people get tired of hearing about it, but it's something that we have inherited through the years. What I'm proud of, though, Mihi, is the By Māori, For Māori strategies that this government has put in place. It still doesn't take away the fact that there's, you know, 26,000 people on the housing register and nearly half of them are Māori. But the reality is that through our Māori housing strategies, we now have got structures and frameworks in place to address the homelessness. How have we got those? We've partnered up with iwi, with the coast, with Gisborne, with Ngāti Kahungunu, with the north, with Tairāwhiti. We've got partnerships going now, and that's been driven by what you've got in terms of that homelessness report. How do you respond to that homelessness report?
Yeah, I don't think that's where the problem is. I think the problem is in the cities, and as you're saying, like, so these homeless Māori households, they are also dealing with material hardship. They've got inadequate heating. There will be a lack of kai. They won't be able to access washing machines and dryers and things like that. It inhibits children from sports and kura. And, you know, as somebody who started at the grassroots, when you go to bed, do you worry about these kids?
Well, they're in my life. You know, I'm still the chairman of our marae in terms of Ngā Whare Wātea. My wife is the chief executive for Manukau Urban Māori Authority. So we talk about them, we worry about them all the time, and so that's why you have to have programs to deal with these kids, you know. Yep. And I'm proud of the programs that we've put in place in the last 6 years. When you look at the stats, you're thinking, oh, you're not making any inroads, but I think it would be much worse if we hadn't have, like, we've put a real focus on whānau ora mihi.
Can we look at the stats, because I think you're right, and I'm not going to confuse people, because the whole housing situation is quite confusing. You've got 3 government departments and 3 ministers looking after a whole series of different housing. You've got the Kiwi Build scheme, which is first homes for first time buyers.
We didn't build a lot in that area, right?
Kainga-ora, you've got Kainga-ora and social housing
right.
sector, which so many of our people are involved with.
Right.
And then you've got the Māori housing scheme, which is Mahi Ka-ora, which is the iwi kind of, the tāpi, the wehi and all those ones up the coast doing those great jobs. When you consider that there's 60,000 Māori who are homeless or suffering from severe housing deprivation, which of those 3 government schemes would be the most effective for putting a roof over their head?
All of them are needed. All of them are
but
needed.
which is most effective? Because this is what's important is the measurement of government policies.
Well, that's a fair question, and I think that our partnerships at the moment are probably the most effective, if that's what you're asking. I think they're the most effective because we're looking at building 1,000 homes by the end of 2025.
Under Mahi Ka-ora?
Yeah, that's under Mahi Ka-ora, which is the iwi innovation partnership with MHUD. So I think that is the most effective, and that's what I'm hearing from our advocates. But you're right to point out. I mean, so those partnerships are with.
So let's leave Mahi Ka-ora there because I think it's doing great jobs and people are actually getting back on whānau land.
That's right.
In these houses and
we're starting to make some inroads there.
But if we look at Kiwi Build, for example, how many houses has Kiwi Build built?
2,000, I think it is. 2,500. I think. What do we promise?
100,000.
Oh, a little bit out, were we?
I think it might be about 12,000. That's what Grant Robertson said the other day. You're a bit short. Not all new builds.
Not all. Oh, yeah. Well, if that's right. But if you're looking at the bare numbers, we were talking about 2,500 the other day. But
it's a great initiative because it's actually building houses for New Zealanders, and as we know, there are a lot of first home buyers that can't get into the private market, so this is helping them get in. Of those houses, how many have been purchased by whānau Māori?
I think you're talking about the Kiwi Build one.
Yeah.
I don't have that number in front of me.
It's because we asked Megan Woods, Minister Megan Woods.
Well,
she didn't at the time that we asked her in 2021, but her office came back to us in 2021, and I will stand corrected if it's changed, but it was 5%.
Was it 5%?
So is Kiwi Build letting Māori down?
Look, let's be clear. I think Kiwi Build hasn't gone well. Whether it's Māori or Pākehā.
But the investment in Kiwi Build is $7 billion. You only get 730 million. Imagine if you had 7 billion.
Here's the thing. Absolutely. Here's the thing. You're right in what you're saying, but I think we've got the frameworks now in place to deal with that. And you've acknowledged that we've got the partnerships going with iwi and all that. That's good. But the real problem is in Māngere, isn't it?
Yeah.
The real problem is in Manurewa. Right, and we have to find ways of getting those people into housing. So, look, you can only put a Buy Māori, for Māori strategy in place. No government's ever done that before. Hang on, we're working with our providers. Our providers. I'm trying to get as much funding and resourcing into those providers as possible. Huri has been a beneficiary of that. You brought up Huri Dennis, plus our Manurewas, our Wāteas, our Waipareiras. Is it enough funding and resourcing? No, it's not. If your point is that we're still way off the mark, you're right, but we're on track.
Shouldn't we have higher aspirations so that we're not just putting our people into social housing and community housing?
Right.
That as Associate Minister for Housing, why can't you go to the Cabinet table to Megan Woods and say, hey, I've got an overrepresented group of people, Māori, without housing, and I think in here I've got it, Māori medium incomes are up under this government, well done, by 7%. So actually middle Māori are able to buy houses, but they're not being given the opportunity.
So you don't think I say that?
I don't know. Do you? Why is it not working? Why are you not getting any traction?
Well, can I just say that I do that all the time. That's all I've ever done in my 6 years is represent our people at the cabinet table, advocating from the position that you've said that Māori, whether it's in the housing area, health area, whānau ora area, Māori broadcasting area, are way underfunded and way under-resourced. And when you talk about funding and resourcing, you can't compare apples with apples because we've been miles off the mark. So if you're asking me, have I done that? My fellow ministers will probably tell you I've done. Ask Grant Robertson, he thinks I do it far too much. So I think that's...
I think that the success is in Mahi Ka-ora, that you're doing it well there. But when it comes to the mainstream funding, and that's where we know where all the billions are.
Your question is right, and that's what Māori ministers should do, and that's what I try to do, and I'm told maybe try to do it too often. But, all you can do is front advocate, and do we get changes? Well, you've seen the changes. You've got the frameworks are in place. We've actually had record. Here's the other side, Mihi. We've had over 700 million go across the Māori housing in the last couple of years. Unprecedented amount of money. But is it enough? Well, you'd say no. We want five times that amount, don't we?
You know, when this government first came into power, your former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, flanked by her Māori ministers and other ministers, stood at Waitangi, and she talked about bringing the two houses closer together. She was talking about the wharirunanga and the government house up there, and the analogy was closing the gaps between socio and economic deprivation between Māori and Pākehā. When I look at this picture, it doesn't look like Māori have had much advantage other than what you're doing in the iwi space in housing. And isn't that just about political will?
Yeah, no, it's about trying to get as much resourcing and funding across as possible. All I can do and all we can do is advocate as strongly as we can. You have seen changes that you've never seen before. You've got a government with a by Māori, for Māori policy. You've got Māori advocates and leaders who will support us all the way through. What you're saying, it's still not enough. You're right. I'm not saying you're wrong, but
you're saying it's not enough.
I always say it's not enough.
So there's only so much.
But what's the option?
Well, there's only so much of the pie, right?
That's right.
Unless you change the structure. And your own government did that by the tax review, and it found that it was fundamentally unfair, our tax system, when you've got middle income earners paying 20% and the wealthiest New Zealanders paying 9%. Were you annoyed when they pulled that? You know, when you ordered up an inquiry, it showed you the facts, and actually it's Māori that are probably going to be most affected by that.
My views on that have always been well documented. I've always thought the tax system was unfair. And that there weren't enough people paying their way. But, you know...
So you would support a wealth tax?
Well, I'm in a government that sometimes you put your case up, and then the boss makes a call, and then you go along with it. And you know, here's the thing, Mihi, you either can accept it or you opt out and join the Maori Party, like you and Annabelle.
Well,
you know? Right. So I mean, what are the options? You know.
So if there was to be a coalition with like the Greens, you'd support a wealth tax?
No. Well, no. I'll work with my party, but all I'm saying is I'm in a system. Sometimes you have to take things on the chin. Or you can, as I said, you can join your party. And I'm just having you on.
Your mate's party.
my mate's party. Yeah, and just say, look, we want, you know, and what's their line? Their line is what you're saying. We need 10 times. And I don't disagree with that, but you can only get so much within the system. And I've tried as hard as I can as Minister to get as much money as possible and resourcing. We've had record resourcing, Mihi. We've averaged nearly $1 billion a year in terms of budgets. But still at the end of the day, as you rightly point out, that's how far behind the 8 ball we are. The disparities are huge.
Let's talk about the Greens, because they released the land, a kaupapa whenua hoki mai.
Yeah.
And one of those was ending perpetual leases of Māori land. So up the east coast where you're from, Ngāti Porou, whānau, they're fed up with the government's imposed perpetual leases of their whenua. Lands like Tupper, Tokomaru Bay, Te Aroa have been stuck in perpetual leases for over a century. They're locked off them while lessees enjoy market rents for them. As the Minister for Māori Development, wouldn't this be the honourable thing to do?
Can't do everything. It can't do everything when the Greens come up with an idea.
No, but you've been approached prior to that.
Yeah, but we've got 100 other things that we're doing. I absolutely understand the position. I've got sympathy for the position. I've talked to my officials about it. They said, look, it would involve a whole...
What would it involve?
Well, you have to bring in legislation. Here's the thing.
When the Taranaki farmers rode up on their tractors to Parliament and moaning about their perpetual land leases, the government sorted it.
The Taranaki farmers at that time weren't in the type of predicament we are in. My priorities in the last couple of years has been getting resourcing and funding taiho for Māori broadcasting, for whānau order, for Māori housing, for Māori health. These are all these priorities. You can't just say, I mean, of course, it's a good idea, and I
you could put houses on there.
No, but I've got sympathy and support for that. But here's the thing: you got to understand, you can't do everything just because the Greens come up with a great. And it is a good idea. And if we get back,
is it something you'd look at?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've got a huge sympathy for that.
Is it unfair?
Of course it's unfair. You know the history in terms of perpetual leases, but I got 10 things, and just because Mihi and my queer Iri Tana Tawhiwhirangi, who got in touch with me over it, and she understood too, but at the same time you got Kohanga that got shut out in terms of funding by a national government. We've rectified that.
Let's talk about that then. So pay parity for Kohanga reo.
Yeah.
So a reo Māori fluent teacher will move from 44,000 to 60,000. How's this going to affect the industry, the kohanga industry?
In terms of?
Good, buoyant.
Oh yeah,
increase?
I mean, we've Calvin Davis, of course, has been in charge of that, and he's worked very closely with the kohanga in terms of parity. The reality is, again, our people are being behind the 8 ball in that area. Our Māori nurses have been behind the 8 ball in that area, and all these different areas we have tried to get in to try and make meaningful change, and we've had acknowledgement from the kohanga reo in terms of that. Is it enough? It's never enough.
Well, the issue that's happened with the revitalisation of te reo, because everyone wants to learn te reo now, but kohanga, I think people have overlooked it. There were 820 kohanga 30 years ago. Today there's 430. There are 1,000 mokopuna on the waiting list. Some of the waiting lists are up to 3 years.
For kohanga?
Yeah, for kohanga reo. How, while pay parity is one thing, how's the Crown going to ensure that those mokopuna don't miss out in learning te reo Māori in 2023?
Well, that's the question, that's the challenge that the Minister's got in front of him. It's one of a number of challenges, but the parity is not there at the moment, and you can only address it if you can get equitable resourcing in there.
Yeah, so is the equitable resourcing in the buildings, it's in the administration of kohanga, unlike MOE, who are updating and upgrading their buildings all the time. How many of those 300 or so kohanga have closed down because they're unable to actually stand anymore?
Well, that's been one of the problems with Kohangarei, and you've seen, sadly, a number of our parents taking their kids across the mainstream, So it is a mix of problems there that the Minister's had to deal with, and equity has been a big challenge.
Let's talk about broadcasting, because you've talked about broadcasting a lot. 2019, the government announced a proposed merger of the state broadcasters in the effort to streamline the two and to strengthen public media in Aotearoa. It was binned this year. But what are the takeaways? What have you been happy with?
In terms of broadcasting?
In terms of, the partial kind of work that was done.
Well, for me, in terms of broadcasting, as you know, it's something very dear to me. That's why I put a lot of work into the Māori broadcasting side of things. You've seen record investment in there in the last 2 or 3 years. We've had 90 million now being appropriated over the last 2-3 years, which is more than the Māori broadcasting has had for over 10 years.
Are you seeing a difference?
It's slow, again, because they haven't had investment in the last 10 years. My idea was always that with the merger that we want to see a lot of our tikanga kaupapa Māori programming come into mainstream, like what you're doing. I think for too long we've been at ghettoised times. So I've had to come up with a different type of strategy, particularly in the last year, which you've seen, which has been an investment in terms of, an investment in Māori broadcasting that's come through. Secondly, an investment in national radio, which was over 25.5 million. Thirdly, we've changed the boards of Television New Zealand and Radio New Zealand. And my last part before we go out is this digital bargaining bill. So I'm happy with what I've been able to pull out of this broadcasting portfolio over the last year.
Kapa, you did mention RNZ there, so I'll remind you, in 2016 when you weren't MP, you challenged RNZ about their Māori content. It was when they were dismantling the Māori news, and they were confident that they were going to be able to weave Māori news into their 24-hour cycle. Have they?
Oh no, they've still got some way to go, I think. I think that's the reality. I get reminded of that quite a bit, and I'm happy to be reminded of it, because I debated with our friend Carol Hirschfield on national radio, and
yes, you did.
That was quite a debate, and I accused them of institutional racism at the time, and she was shocked by it. But I have to say, I think they made they've made changes since then. Have they got a way to go? Yeah, of course they've got a way to go. Of course they've got a way to go. But it's good to hear them all speaking Māori now. Some, and they've acknowledged that they have to change. But we still have some way to go in terms of getting Māori presenters into prime time positions. Mihi, that's still not there, and I think that hangs over them. So I think And I don't mind being reminded of criticism of the national radio. I didn't know I was going to become the Minister for National Radio. I made huge criticisms of the Labour Party in 2004, 2005. I said our people should never vote for them again, and here I am a minister with them. Just because you make criticism doesn't mean to say that organisations don't change and people don't change. I'm comfortable with national radio. I still think with where they're at in terms of their Māori strategy, still needs a bit of work, and I'm looking forward to the changes over the next few months.
The merger didn't go through, and I guess after the merger, if it had gone through, you were going to then look at what would happen at Whakaata Māori. Let's talk about Whakaata Māori, because I'm unsure what the strategy is. It's expensive. I looked at their 2021 end of year 2022. 8 executives are averaging 232k, another 18 managers averaging 150k. Some pretty high salaries there, and when you look at the output, so linear output, just 2 million a year, and the comparison is TVZ would do 1 million a week. Is it time to bring those resources together? Is it working out there in mana motuhake? Is it value for money?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a fair analogy. I think, I always get asked, how long will I be supporting Māori TV or Māori broadcasting, and how long before Māori TV's ratings, should they be at the higher levels? My view is that, are you comparing apples with apples? You never had investment into, as you know, you worked at Māori TV, yourself and Annabelle played big roles there, and are you making fair comparisons? So I don't think comparing the ratings with TVNZ is fair, because
no, you're right.
Because one had a generation, two generations.
You're right. It's not.
Of
I was
investment.
asking more about the strategy. Is it time to bring it all back under the same umbrella,
I think
share the resources?
I think that has to be a consideration. I had a review team that was overseeing that, and I think that was one of their ideas. Māori TV wanted to do their mana motuhake, and I'm supporting that, because I believe our people deserve a chance. Shane Todium is doing a good job in there in terms of making things work, but you're right, the linear viewership is very, very low, and everything is going online, everyone's starting to stream. So are you, and I know with their top shows, their best views are when they go online. So that strategy should be reviewed and looked at all the time. I'm pleased with what they're doing now, but they never again got investment. They're getting meaningful investment, and have done in the last few years.
If Labor loses the election, will you stay around?
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see, mate. I'm not contemplating us losing the election.
Isn't it fair, though, that we know? That voters know? Well,
no, because I'm going out to win the election. I'm the campaign manager for Māori and for all the 7 seats. So we're going out to win the election. Look, we're right in the race, despite what these people are saying. Oh, it's all over. There's only 3% between the blocks. And despite them going on and on, I think we're a real chance, real opportunity, and I'm fixed on winning, so I'm not worried about what I'm doing after the election.
E te minata he nui te mihi kia koe. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Mā mua ka kite amuri, mā muri ka ora a mua. E whakamāno atu nei kia koutou, e hono mai nei ki i nei wānanga, tēnā koutou katoa. Ka nui te mihi ki te puna whakatonga rewa me te Māngai Pāho. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back in a fortnight. Nohoro mai.